Ever hear that saying, two things in life are certain, death and taxes?
Ha ha ha, yeah.
Well, maybe we got to add a third one to that list.
Yeah.
Arguing about government assistance here in the U.S.
Yeah, it's a perennial topic, isn't it?
Yeah, seems like it. Today's deep dive, we're going to bring up some, well, interesting points on this whole debate. You might even say it's a bit of a curveball.
Oh, intrigue already. I'm ready.
So we're looking at this article from 2 paragraphs, right? And it talks about this new study from the Economic Innovation Group. They found that basically more Americans than ever are relying on government support these days.
Which, on the surface, isn't entirely shocking given, well, everything.
Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting. The study suggests that this trend is particularly noticeable among, get this, Republican voters. The same group that often pushes for, smaller government.
Right, the less government assistance platform. So how deep does this reliance go? Are we talking about, like, the occasional unemployment check, or is it more significant?
It's pretty significant, actually. We're talking about a massive jump in the number of counties where over 25% of residents' income comes straight from government programs.
Wow. Okay, so back in 2000, only about 10% of counties fit that description, right?
Exactly. Today,
yeah,
that number is over 50%. That's huge.
That is a massive shift in a relatively short period.
Talk about a sea change. And to be clear, when we're saying government programs, we're talking, like Social Security, Medicare, stuff that people pay into.
Right, those entitlement programs.
And also stuff like SNAP benefits, Medicaid, the whole shebang.
Yeah, the safety net programs as well, which taken together really points to some pretty substantial shifts happening, don't you think, in our economy, how our social structures work.
Makes you wonder what's driving this whole thing, right? Why are so many people across all these different demographics relying more and more on the government? And what does it mean when a big chunk of Republican voters, the folks who often criticize these programs,
Are the same people depending on them.
Exactly. What does that mean, especially with the election coming up?
Especially in an election year, right? It's something the Wall Street Journal even pointed out. A lot of these counties where folks heavily rely on government assistance,
They're in those key swing states.
the ones that often determine the election. So does this knowledge change how people vote? Will it change how the candidates talk about these issues? Good questions.
Will candidates, especially Republicans, maybe soften their stance on government assistance or double down, even with this apparent contradiction?
It's fascinating. Is it like cognitive dissonance? Or are certain types of Republicans, maybe in specific areas or facing certain problems, are they just more likely to use these programs? Or is this like a bigger disconnect between what politicians are saying and what's actually going on with voters?
It's definitely something to think about. Before we get too into the political side of things, let's not forget, this isn't just some political game.
Right. There are real people behind the numbers.
It's about people's lives, their jobs, how they make ends meet.
It is about their well-being. Right. We're talking about things like healthcare, having enough to eat, and, well, just knowing that you can afford a roof over your head, food on the table.
The essential stuff. And for a lot of Americans, that safety net that comes from government assistance, that's what makes it possible.
Absolutely. So it begs the question, what does reliant on the government even mean, really?
Yeah, what does that even mean? Is it like a personal failing, like some people say? Or is it more of a sign of, I don't know, bigger problems like wages not keeping up, the cost of everything going up, or not enough affordable places to live?
Right, because that's where things get messy, right? You've got ideology, people just repeating talking points. It's easy to simplify things, but it's way more complicated than that.
It is, because for some folks, it's temporary, right? You lose a job, something unexpected happens, you need a little help for a bit. But for others, it's more long-term, maybe a disability because they're older, something that makes it really hard to work.
Exactly. And it's important to remember a lot of these programs, things like Social Security, you're not just getting a handout. You pay into that.
Your whole working life, basically, with the understanding that, when you retire, need health care as a senior, it'll be there for you.
And that gets to the whole deserving versus undeserving thing, right? That some folks use to talk about who should get help. But it kind of ignores the bigger picture.
It does.
Like, economies go up and down, industries change, things happen that you just can't predict. It can affect anyone. It doesn't matter what your background is, what you believe politically.
Yeah. But for the grace of God go I, right?
Yeah.
We could all be there. It's important to remember that, I think, and to have a little empathy. Sometimes people need help, plain and simple.
I completely agree. And this isn't just an American thing, right? This idea of how much is on you? How much should society support you? Every country deals with this.
That's true. So where do we go from here? We've got all this information about how many people use government assistance on all sides of the political spectrum. How do we move forward in a way that helps people who need it, but also encourages people to be self-sufficient, to take care of themselves?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Not an easy one to answer. But I think we need to start by, I don't know, getting rid of the blame game, this whole us versus them thing that always comes up.
Easier said than done, though, right? I mean,
Yeah.
especially during an election year. It feels like that's all you hear, blame, blame, blame.
It's true. But maybe, just maybe, this study can get people talking. Start a real conversation about all of this.
A more productive one, at least. And hey, to everyone listening, you got to watch out for those simple stories, the political stuff. Pay attention to what the candidates are saying over the next few months. As you hear those speeches, those plans they have, ask yourself, who's really benefiting from all this? Who are they forgetting about? And does any of it match up with what people are actually dealing with every day?
It's about looking past the, what do they call them, the sound bites. Look at the data, all the little details, the stories behind the stories, basically.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, this isn't really about politics. It's about people.
It's about our communities, the people around us, right? What kind of place do we want to live in? What are we leaving for, our kids and grandkids? That's what it comes down to. So to everyone out there listening, keep asking those tough questions. Don't be afraid to challenge what you think you know. And as always, keep diving deeper.